I am like hooking this up permanently. I still have to take the engine back out. Oh well.
What would you do with a brain if you had one?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Alright, so if you remember our last video, we picked up our engine and now we got to get this thing put in and make sure it's going to fit correctly. Alright, so quick test fit of our adapter plate. It looks like everything is lined up correctly, but before we go pushing it on tight, I'm making a mess. I want to make sure we get everything clean. I don't want any debris or anything coming between the adapter plate and the engine itself. So we're going to use a little brake clean here. We're going to go around and clean the whole mounting surface off. So while the flex plate's off, I'm going to walk over to the workbench. I'm going to make sure it fits our torque converter, and it does. So we're good to put it back on. All right, so we got the adapter plate tightened down, and next I'm going to slap this flex plate back on there real quick, make sure it doesn't hit the adapter plate, and it's got plenty of room and clearance around it, and it does. And then I'm going to start reading the directions on what bolts are supposed to go in next, and the directions weren't quite right. All right, guys, so they messed up. They sent us, we're supposed to get 2 of these bolts, and instead we got 2 of these bolts, or one of these, which is a bigger head. It's still 3/8/16. No, it's not. This is metric, I think. Yeah, 10.9. This is metric. They messed up. This is what we're supposed to have. This is what they sent us. 1 metric bolt instead of 2 of these. So I got to go to the hardware store and find another one of these. All right, so wow, we've got the flex plate back on, but before we do anything else, let's go ahead and get our starter on here and make sure that that lines up right. We have a 95 Chevy starter going on this 60s Buick engine block and having to line up with the Buick flex plate. So I need to get the starter on there, make sure the teeth are going to line up correctly when we engage the starter, otherwise we won't be able to start our engine. And this was a suggestion Dallas made because the later model starter is a little smaller than the old school style one. All right, guys, so ran into some snags here. Figured out these are the flat washers that go with the bolts that hold the transmission on to the engine, using 2 of these and those 4 there. And secondly, that means that these are the washers they want you to use to take up the space of the thickness, because your transmission, when you're bolting this plate in between the transmission and the engine, you're pushing the transmission back this distance. Which means your torque converter, if you bolt it up solid here, is going to be this much too short going into the transmission. So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to space the torque converter out using 2 of these washers. As you can see, that's barely over half the thickness of this plate, so that wouldn't work anyway. And like I said, these are way too small to go on the torque converter bolts. So yeah, so I'm going to use these washers. I found a set of, I think these are exhaust washers, these really thick guys, and a regular thick washer. As you can see, they are basically perfect to make up that difference. So we're going to use those, and then I'm waiting for the bolts to come in. I need longer bolts. These are only going to gauge about 2 threads. So I need the longer bolts in order to hook this up, and I got to go to the hardware store and get one of these. So we can't quite button it up now. All right, more issues with the adapter plate. These are the bolts you're supposed to use to screw this into the plate. So it'll grab maybe 2 threads. It turns out the same with the bottom bolts. These are supposed to go in here like this. And yeah, that looks like plenty, except it's not only got to go through that plate, but then it's got to go into the block, which that does have threads to start. So it's only going to thread in maybe 2 threads. So this needs to be a 1/4 inch longer. So I guess I'll be getting a bunch of bolts at the hardware store. Well, since we got to go to the hardware store to pick up bolts, and I don't feel like doing it right this second, we're going to go ahead and just get this engine lifted up and bolted into the mounts and just see what kind of clearance we have around things like the exhaust manifolds and the oil filter and the valve covers and things like that, because I didn't have any of that stuff when we did our mock-up with the bare block. So enjoy while we slide this engine into place. Hey guys, I'm sorry I left my microphone in the house. We have it sitting in there, and considering all I was working with was a block, I can't believe how close it is to so many things in so many places. Let's give you a tour. Oil pan fits fine, as you can see. We made clearances for that. The fuel line comes out of the tank in the perfect spot to match up over here to this pump. I might change this pump because I think mine has a different sized inlet. So anyway, we got some mods to do for this thing, but one big problem is going to be the shifter that will not work. The shifter arm is basically right against the valve cover, so there's no way I can use the column shift on this truck anymore with this engine in it, which really sucks. I really wanted to use that. Brake line will have to move. It's right on the exhaust outlet there, but the exhaust outlet has enough clearance. We could put a pipe in there and have an exhaust system. Yay. Move around to this side. Dallas had put on a different housing. This is off of Grand National, I believe, or that era Buick V6, which pulls this way a little, I believe is the deal. And he put a short filter on it, so it clears, but we're probably not gonna be able to get the filter off for a filter change without removing that bolt for the steering arm and maybe the whole arm, but I guess that's a small price to pay. And if it isn't, we'll put a remote oil filter mount on there, but we'll do that later because it just has to get to the no names running. All right, so it's sitting in there. The back will actually come up a little bit, which might be a problem here. We've only got about that width, my finger width clearance here. And if the back comes up when I install the transmission, then that means that's not going to fit without me modifying the firewall or something. As far as headers go, there's zero chance of those headers going on this at all. But this side's much better. Headers might actually fit on this side. I don't think so, but maybe. The big problem now is going to be, will it clear the steering arm and my steering column? And I think the answer is going to be no, it will not. So let me get the steering box back in here and see what that looks like. So here's where we run into an issue. That's how far off it is. So you can see that's like a ½ inch off. Well, at least 3/8. No, a ½ inch because of the thickness of the materials. The problem is it's hitting on this second exhaust manifold too. And to make things even worse, it's not even as close as it looks. That's on the flat part where it's been shaved down. So if this was turned like that, it would be much worse. Oops. So yeah, it's pretty far off. Let me get that cover off there. All right, guys, so here's the deal. Steering column will not fit with these manifolds on. So I've got a couple of things to consider. What do I do? Well, I've been looking at it for a while. I talked to Dallas for a while. Dallas thought fabbing up a header would probably be the smart move. I think fabbing up a header, even though I have a starting point, is probably going to be way more difficult than just making a new steering shaft with a extra U-joint in the middle of it. I don't mind trying to build a set of headers custom. That's why I bought those. I was planning on doing it, but we've only got 30 days basically till the No Name Nationals, and I don't have time to be spending a week just on a set of headers, and that's how long it's going to take me in reality. And I don't want to rush through and cobble it up just because I'm trying to make an event. So I think let's take another look at these, because now that I'm looking at these things in the truck, I mean, ignore that brake line on it because that can be moved. and it belongs under that bolt, so it will be moved. Alright guys, it's pretty far away even though it doesn't look it in this angle. But I mean, that's a perfect dump out spot for an exhaust. And everything else is clearing over here. It's just the steering column that it interferes with. Everything else is great. And we go to the other side, and it's a similar situation. It's really quite good. The only place I have any issues with the exhaust, and again, I don't have the transmission on it and know that I have the angle exactly perfect, but I think this is basically where the engine's going to end up. And as you can see, we've got like a 1/16 of an inch of clearance. So that actually works, because what I can do is I can actually knock this in a little bit right here in this area, trim a little off the edge of this panel even if I want, and we can make that, we can give that just a little bit more clearance. But like I said, I got to get the transmission on it and see exactly where it's going to sit, but I'm leaning towards just using the exhaust manifolds at this point, because I mean, that's a really good fit. And as you can see on this side, there is almost no room to stick a header through there anywhere. The starter's eating up everything in here. There you go. Starter's eating up all the space in here, so there's nothing I can do there. So that's kind of ideal. It kind of dumps out in a spot where you can actually get an exhaust on it. All right, guys, now that we figured out what we're going to do exhaust-wise and how we're going to fix our steering column, I got to wait for parts to fix the steering column. So we can put that project off to the side. I got the brake line bolted down. When I get the engine out, I'll fasten the center of the brake line. There's still another clip there I need to make a spot for it and get that nailed down. And then our brake line should be good. But I think it's time we turn our attention to a fuel line. So I am going to take that fuel pump off. We know absolutely nothing about this one. It's just the one that came with the junky old engine when it was new. So we're going to put this one in it. This one has the outlet coming straight out the bottom on right about here. The other one comes out on this side and hooks over and points straight at the steering box, so that's no good. And then this one has the outlet coming off here, which is basically right in this area, so I can bring that out and up and bring it straight over here, and we got to get it all the way over to this side. So, all right, so I'm going to make the first piece. I think what I'm going to do is make a hard line that goes in between these two, so that I can just use short, tiny pieces of rubber hose to attach them. Because, yeah, there's that whole, you know, can't run rubber line on a race car thing. But anyway, it looks like all I need is a down and over, and it looks like I have that right here. Down and over. Alright guys, so as you can see, what I'm trying to do is just build this hard line to come over and match this one. I think what I'm going to do here, just to make things prettier, is I'm going to put a bend in it so that it lines up straight. Alright, and there it is. Let's see how she fits. I haven't cut it down to length yet, but let's just see how it looks. Okay. That should work out pretty good now. Let's have a look. That'll go there, doesn't go there. Yeah, okay, cool. Alright guys, we put a little flare on the end, and then I tuned it up with a sanding disc, because you don't want a whole bunch of sharp stuff here. I just want something to keep the clamp from pulling back off. And then we got some fuel line. Make sure you use fuel line, like it should say it right on it. This just verifies everything fits. Alright, there we go guys. We have our supply line in. That looks pretty clean, I think. All right, everybody, that should do it for this video. I know it's a weird place to stop, but that's just kind of where we stopped. And the next one, we'll be pulling the engine back out, getting the transmission hooked to it, and sticking it back in. So be sure and come around to see that. These videos should be going a little quicker. I've been filming this stuff for you guys and doing updates. I'm just not getting them out quickly because the editing takes quite a bit of time. So that's why the videos are looking crappier and crappier. But we have a deadline. We got to meet our deadline, and that's priority number one. So you're just going to get weird videos. You're going to get shorts that don't make any sense. Things are going to be out of sequence. But I just want you guys to see everything that's going on one way or another. So there you go. So yeah, make sure to come back for the next one. The shop's a disaster area, but it's going to be that way till after No Names, I'm pretty sure. Just the way it is. And we're getting pretty close to firing this thing up. So definitely come back and check that out. So thanks again for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share, do all that crazy stuff that helps the algorithms. And we'll see you guys when we see you next. Take care of yourself.